All right, so another overcast day here in Northern California. I'm in a place called Bean Hollow. I'm gonna work with the scene behind me. It's a bit breezy, so hopefully we won't get too much noise. Tide is also coming in, so I'm gonna work quickly. Going with my usual limited palette: titanium white, cadmium yellow medium, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and phthalo blue green shade. Painting on an 11 by 14 inch panel. And my usual brushes. I've got natural bristle flats here, a number 8 and a number 6. I'm going to try to use the number 8 for most of the painting, using Liquid Original as my medium, and I've got odorless mineral spirits in a brush washer. Here is the scene I'm working with. I'm going to try to make something of this opening in the rocks here and the distant land. So at first I just want to get some sort of like gestural lines here almost, to get a feel for how I want to lay things out. And so I've got these rocks in the foreground, which are right here. I want to exaggerate the slope though, just to create a little bit more energy going into the composition. So yeah, I've exaggerated that slope. And then there's an opening in the rocks here. I might try to open it up a little bit more than it is in real life. I'll probably include some of this distant shoreline here like this. And I may kind of compress the scene and include some of these elements over here, and maybe even make them a little bit bigger. I always start out with these sort of exploratory lines just to get a feel for what I'm working with. All right, I'm gonna erase this line here to kind of open up these rocks. There's also a rock right here, as you can see right here. I think I do want to include that. So this rock kind of comes out like this, and then there's this other rock, like right there, something like that. Maybe I'll drop this down a little bit like this and erase this area here to open that up a little bit. All right, I feel like I want to clean up the water line here. All right, and I've added a bit more detail to these rocks. Okay, I've got a dark mixture here using ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and some burnt sienna to kind of calm down the purple effect. And I'm squinting at the scene to simplify the shapes, just looking for the darkest darks at this point. And as I mentioned before, I like to keep my darks transparent. It keeps them from feeling too heavy, and also creates a luminous effect. Not necessarily on a day like this. Today it's overcast, there's not a lot of direct light, it's all very diffused. So, but that also means that the darks should not be, you know, extremely dark. I want to try to keep this painting somewhat high key. In the distance there's a line of rocks out here, and I'm not sure if I want them to go all the way across. I think I might have them end here, even though in real life they actually go way out. As you can see, they go all the way out there. I think I want to leave at least a little bit of an opening, maybe here and maybe here. Now there will be water in the distance as well, so we'll see. All right, and then up here there's some cliffs and also trees like this. Something like that. All right, I've got a mixture here of burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and I've kind of dragged in some of this dark mixture here. Just quickly want to block in these rocks. I just want to get the shapes established. And these colors are just estimates at this point, and typically they're going to be way too saturated, but that's okay, because I'm going to fine tune these colors after, and some of the colors coming through, having some of the saturation come through is not necessarily a bad thing. All right, for the sky, starting off with ultramarine, alizarin crimson, and some titanium white. And then I'm going to use some of this burnt sienna to kind of tone down the purple effect, making it more towards kind of a purple gray. Just quickly establish some of these bigger areas, you know, like the sky and then also the water. And there's like a bit of water visible out in the distance. And we'll see how that goes. So as usual, paying attention to values, in particular the relationship between the white water and, like, say, the darker water or the sky. It's easy to mix those colors too light and then not have sufficient contrast. All right, so for the water, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue, phthalo blue, titanium white, and cadmium yellow medium. I've also mixed in a bit of alizarin crimson, since red is the complement to green, just to kind of dull down the green just a little bit. And there will be some whitewater patterns off in the distance, just around these rocks. So I'll kind of leave some unpainted areas. I might want to have some whitewater over here too, although I don't want to draw the eye in this direction, so maybe not. Maybe I won't. Maybe a wave right here. And then maybe some kind of white water in here, like some turbulent activity to avoid straight lines. And I can always go over this with a paper towel and erase areas of white water that I feel would be helpful for the composition. All right, added titanium white to the rock mixture. I'm going to use this for the sand that's at the base of the rocks. And there's some land out here that has bits of kind of warm colored sand, something like that. I'd added a bit more titanium white for the sand that's on the beach, and just kind of add that in along here. All right, there we go. All right, a little bit more of the water mixture here. I have added a bit of ultramarine blue just because it's a bit darker on the horizon. I'm thinking that I'd like to see some maybe wave activity right out here, kind of to draw the eye out. Okay, so at this point I step back about 10 or 15 feet and just look at the shapes and just kind of decide how I like the feel of the arrangement. And I actually do, I like it. Quite a bit of ambiguity in here, but from a distance, you know, the mind kind of fills in the blanks. I want to make sure that I don't overwork this painting with detail and kill the energy. All right, so I've got some grays mixed up here, just using burnt sienna, ultramarine blue, and a bit of cadmium yellow medium and titanium white. There are certain areas in the rocks that have almost like sort of a blue-green kind of color to them. I want to leave these rocks in the foreground very loose, so that the eye tends to pass right over them. And we can check and see if I'm getting closer to the actual color of the rocks. And I am leaving some of the orange of the burnt sienna coming through, some of those saturated tones. All right, I added some yellow and alizarin to the rock mixture to be able to paint in some of these lighter tones on the tops of the rocks. So again, I'm squinting at the subject to simplify the shapes. Okay, so I'm gonna go back in with my dark mixture and reinforce some of the darks. I do feel like I might have lost it a bit here, but I don't tend to get discouraged when that happens, because it's sort of a fun challenge to try to recapture you know, the painting when you feel like you've lost it. Most of the time paintings don't work out because we give up and don't solve the problem. But in any given painting, there's always going to be moments where I feel like I might have lost it, and then I've got to reclaim it. In the past, I would often give up at that point. I'd be like, I don't know what to do, and then I'd quit. I always say, like, a painting isn't bad, it's just not finished. If you're in that position where you don't know what to do and the painting's not working, you got nothing to lose, so you just start experimenting. That's what I did, and then I found that I could actually, you know, I started finding solutions to the problems. I do want to add some warmth to these rocks, even though they're pretty gray in color. I know that when I get this painting inside, it's going to look pretty lifeless or kind of dull, so I'm going to exaggerate the warmth, in particular on the top of these rocks. Got some more water mixture here. The sun is starting to come out, so the light is definitely changing. But that's all right, you know, just out here playing around, having fun. So, not too worried about it. And I'm gonna more or less stick with my original idea. All right, I've got some alizarin and ultramarine here. There's some areas of purple. I'm not sure if it's like submerged rocks or it could be submerged seaweed, but I'm gonna add that in. At this point, I'm kind of working into just existing mixes that I have. So I'm not even really making up new mixes, just adding into existing ones, like say for this sand here. All right, decided to warm up some of these purple shadow areas. I'm squinting and I can still see definition between the light and shadow, but I just don't want them to be too dark and heavy. I'm gonna experiment with adding some dark under this wave maybe, and maybe another section of dark here. I can always eliminate these if I want to, obviously. Okay, I've got a very light purple mixture here for the distant shoreline. You know, where the sand is kind of wet. I'm seeing some reflections here in the wet sand, and I think I want to try to quickly capture the reflections of this rock. All right, I got a dark green here, kind of slightly darker than mid-tone. I may need to lighten this up a bit to keep it in the distance. I've already lightened it up from what I'm seeing, but I may need to lighten it up a bit more. We'll see. Okay, adding some titanium white. I think I want it a bit lighter. Obviously, I want it to be darker than the sky, but I want it to be light enough that it doesn't seem like, you know, this heavy weight out in the distance. I want to create a sense of depth if possible. All right, I mixed up a dark green here that's got actually a lot of alizarin in it. It's very, you know, it's leaning towards red. In fact, I'm not even sure if it is green anymore, but that's kind of what I'm seeing out there. Something like that. Maybe I'll make, actually maybe I'll make this one kind of go up higher. Again, still working with this number 8. I have not had to break out the number 6 yet. All right, that's a little bit too tidy. I'll put another sort of top right there, something like that. Just kind of make sure the shapes are irregular. Okay, I've got titanium white with some of this purplish mixture here, and I want to make sure the top of this wave is irregular, and the bottom for that matter. Maybe a little bit of reflection there. And I'm not opposed to leaving some of the orange from the sketch, adding some titanium white to this greenish mixture here. All right, this part's kind of tricky. I want to do it quickly without too much thought. Just keep the edges of the reflection soft. And maybe one streak across it like that. All right, so here's what I finished up with. And as I mentioned, I wanted to experiment with the compositional idea of having these rocks in the foreground, creating a sense of depth. One of the challenges on this particular day is the fact that it was overcast. So the colors are very muted. Not a lot of strong light and shadow to work with either. But I do like the overall design, or I like the overall arrangement of shapes. I think I would like to go back and paint this scene again on a sunny day and actually paint it on a larger canvas or panel as well. I think 16 by 20 minimum. I felt like I was a little bit restricted in this area here. It'd be nice to have a little bit more room to swing the brush. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. It's the Patreon support that helps keep me making these videos, and it's much appreciated. I got a bunch of extra videos on there on the materials list, so check it out. Other than that, stay creative, and I'll see you guys in the next video.